up we had last year, and that was with a weather report that wasn't supposed to be that great. I was impressed with the turnout. So whatever we're doing, apparently we're doing it right. So I just wanted to mention that occurred, and it's good to see that. It's good to see the community involved and showing up like that. And thanks again to everybody involved. Anyone else from the board or department heads have anything to say? Kristen has something to say.
Our next event is the Multicultural Arts Festival, which is October 7th from 11 to 3 at the community center. We'll have some crafters there. We have one of the food vendors that was at CJ will also be there, so make chili. And some bands, some dancers, some interactive children's events, and that is sponsored by a grant from Sarah Arts.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Roger, do you have anything at all you wanted to bring up? Roads look great, by the way, Raj. Nice and clear. No snow. Anyone else from the board? Anything at all? All right. Before we move on to comments from town residents, in lieu of our meeting we had last, what was it? No, a month ago, not quite a month ago. Seems like only yesterday, 28th, yeah. There's been much concern in our town, not just from those that spoke, the residents that spoke that evening, concerning speeding and such, or speed limit, speed reduction on Miller Road. These are concerns that really echo concerns that actually the town's been hearing for a number of years and trying to address it as best that we can, which we're still doing now. We're trying to address those concerns. Miller Road has gotten a lot of attention, and it's rightfully so. That's what I would expect residents to do when they see that there's an issue or a problem or concern, that you bring it to us, the town board, and that's what they've done. And so they're doing their part. We are also doing our part in terms of up here on the town board. So I just wanted to touch base on some updates on what I've found out since the last meeting that hopefully will answer some questions for any Miller Road residents who are here tonight or are listening. We talked about where we were, or where we are rather, with an engineering study. I've learned that, as I kind of suspected, for well, as long as I can remember, and any board member I've talked to and anyone else within the town, highway superintendent, we typically rely on DOT for engineering studies. And we do that for really a primary reason. That is, it doesn't cost us anything. If we were to elicit the help of our own private engineering or town engineering for every single speed reduction or traffic issue, we'd be broke, quite frankly. We would not have the money to do that. So what has been done historically and what we've continued to do is turn over such requests to New York State. It goes to the county first, and then it goes on to the New York State when there's a speed reduction, and they do their study and we wait. That typically lasts at least a year, up to a year, sometimes longer. We knew that when we went into this adventure that we're in right now. So that's not new news. Since the last meeting, I've reached out to the county, Chad Cook, the commissioner with public safety, and asked him if he had heard or if he could find out any updates for us on behalf of Malta with the speed reduction we've put in. And pretty much I got the answer that I was expecting to hear or thought that I would hear, and that is we've heard nothing other than that they're backlogged and that it can take at least a year, sometimes more. So that brings us to, okay, what do you do, Town of Malta? Do we do nothing at all? What do we do in the interim? Well, we've had speed limit signs that flash your speed that typically, and I've asked DOT about this, and I tend to believe and agree with them, that the signs that flash your speed get your attention, and although you don't realize it, you're slowing down because no one wants to see you're going faster than the posted speed limit, because everyone that's behind you is seeing that you're going faster than the speed limit. So to that end, we do have two that have been, Well, unaccounted for. I've heard various reports of where they are, where they could be. One's broke, one's not. I've narrowed it down to the facts that both of them are going to be in operating condition. We should be receiving them back the week of the 18th from the company that has had them for a while. So yes, we have been pushing the ball to get more of a response from them. They've had these signs for a while. In addition to that, I can tell you that because of what I said earlier, we recognize that this has been an issue, it's been a concern previous to myself and probably previous to Darren O'Connor and other boards. This is nothing new. You get more people in a town, you get more congestion, you're going to have speeding. So because of that, I have asked our highway to look into and actually price additional signs that we can use throughout the town, a minimum of 2. Nancy, Rogers' secretary, has done some work for me on that and narrowed down the price, roughly, I think, $5,000 per sign. That collects a lot of data. It's data that we can use to supplement any engineering that we do, should we decide to do that and pursue our own engineering in addition to what we get back from DOT. And we would do that if we were to look into further measures other than just reducing speed. But we still need data to do that, and these signs actually provide that data, and an engineer would interpret the data, and that would aid and probably would reduce our fees or our costs in terms of engineering studies that they would need to do. So to the point, that's something that we're going to do. We're going to get these 2 additional signs so we will have 4 on hand so that we can address the other roads, because Miller Road's not the only road where people speed or where there's complaints or concerns. I can think of at least a half a dozen right off the top of my head where people do not obey the speed limit signs. Which brings me to enforcement. DOT even specifies in their reports, as do any highway department heads. They'll tell you the best defense, so to speak, is law enforcement, or the best enforcement, or the best way to reduce speeding is through law enforcement. When you have people there actually watching and producing tickets and so on, that's how you reduce speeding. We did embark upon that at the beginning of the year, and I'm happy to report that that has shown results. Sheriff Zerlo has provided me with statistics each month, and I can tell you that we are seeing the results of those. Property damage accidents have gone down in the last 2 months consecutively. In addition to that, citations have gone up. Well, why would that be? Well, that is because people are speeding. And the citations are being issued because they're being caught by law enforcement, because we have law enforcement now that's dedicated to our town. So it's working. I can tell you that I've spoken with at least 2 different deputies that have personally written tickets on Miller Road. So I know people are getting cited on Miller Road. My point here is we are doing the best that we can at this time. We do have a process, as it was pointed out at the last meeting, and that process is you submit your plan, or your request rather, for a speed reduction to the state. You wait for the state to give the report. God bless you, Kristen. Anything further from that point is at the board's discretion, whether or not we want to actually solicit our engineer to do a more in-depth study. I've also spoken with our engineer personally, one of our town engineers, the spearhead, if you will, tip of the spear of our engineers, and basically broke it down in layman's terms, and that is, any study that we do is only a good study if you actually act upon the study. Studies are not cheap. So if you want to do a traffic study, let's say, on Miller Road, because maybe speeding is not going to cease because of signage or what have you, then what are the other alternatives that an engineering study would provide? Well, none of them are going to be cheap. There's going to be traffic calming measures that they're going to suggest. Some people have said, well, just put up stop signs. Well, it's actually, stop signs are not supposed to be utilized to reduce speed. Stop signs are there for what their purpose is. It's not to reduce speed. It's actually really against the law to do that, and we don't want to do that. We want to go by what the state guidelines are. So I don't think that that's an answer. I think that would be a knee-jerk reaction to just throw stop signs up every time a town road says people are speeding and enough people come to a board meeting and they want it reduced. I'm not a fan of doing that. I am a fan of following the procedures that we've had in place. They've worked so far. They don't, give the results that people look for today, I think, which is immediate. Obviously, if this was something that was life-threatening and it was an impending danger, we would act upon it immediately. This is a situation that occurs throughout our town daily, and we're trying to grapple with that as best we can. So with that being said, I will open it up to any public comment on any issue that anyone may have.
Hey, Mark, I have a question
Sure.
first. Are those radar signs that we got a quote on, are they solar
They are solar.
rated?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. I meant to actually mention that, but it is solar. Nancy printed it out for me.
The other thing is I want to thank you, Nancy, and Roger for coming back with some sound facts on the residents' requests this time. I know it was only two weeks, but I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We're
you much.
trying our best, we really are, and it's difficult. I know when you see people flying by, I see them on my road, and unfortunately, I'm on a road there's no posted speed limit, so it's technically 55.
Right.
It's a road you should never do 55 on, but everyone does at least 55. So I know what it's like. So I understand why people are upset and they want answers today.
Mark,
We are doing our best. Yes, John?
I'm, very glad to hear that we're going to purchase a couple more of the radar speed signs and deploy them. I'm a little concerned that, and maybe my information isn't accurate, that we had the signs that we owned and they weren't available working for us. And I hope that we've got some kind of a game plan going forward to keep those signs maintained, keep them, deployed to priority locations in town, because it seems like we recently got into a situation where the signs were not working and they weren't being used, and there's no sense in purchasing two more if we're going to do that again. So
No.
hopefully that'll happen. And I certainly respect the notion, and I think I made this clear from my comments last time, that it's, I'm happy to have the state do the speed evaluation on, the Miller Road. But in the discussions previously, we had some discussion about other aspects of the road besides the speed, one being the width of the traveled way and the very narrow shoulders, and whether there were options, that could be looked at to widen shoulders. I don't know. And as you point out, there could be traffic calming measures or signage that are, from an engineering standpoint, appropriate to do. I don't know. I do hope when we have the speed recommendations from DOT that those other questions will be answered, whether there's something besides speed that can be done. As you point out, those things can be very, very expensive. And so, I don't think we want to assume that they will be done, but I think we need to take a look at them if we get the state recommendations for speed back in the near future, hopefully. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And yeah, I was trying to thumb through the report and find the width of that road. This was from 2013 when Chazen had done that study that encompassed, I believe, Ruley Road South, and Miller Road was also part of it. 23-foot, Roger, does that sound right? 23-foot road, plus or minus? That is a road by use? And I also noted that less than 50 feet. And I realized that this is like a 10-year-old study at this point, but when they had done this on Miller Road, they actually state right in here that the speed limit's 40 miles an hour, and in their opinion at that time, that was adequate. So, but again, that was
Right,
10 years ago.
right. So,
We do have some data to go on already, and we'll
Right.
build upon that, and we certainly, once DOT, I'm hoping that comes back sooner than later, once we get that. And that was also Chazen's suggestion, or Labella at this point, that we wait until that study come back, and then certainly embark upon investigating further if that's a deeper dive that we want to do.
thanks, that sounds good.
Yep, thank you, John. Any other board members? Oh,
Just got one thing to say.
yeah,
They're continuing to build over on the Boston side,
mm-hmm,
and there's currently a PDD with 191 homes, which, gonna probably, some of them are gonna come down that road.
mm-hmm.
You know, not gonna get better.
No, it's, and you're right, Roger. I mean, throughout the town, not just there with the Mitchell Farm, I think that's the one you're talking about. I mean, we run the risk, so to speak, or we face that possibility probably moving forward even more at the rate that we're going. Hopefully, we can control that. But you're right, that is something that's going to just be impactful, not just in that area on East Line or Miller Road, but Ruley Road South and any other connecting roads. It's just,
On the Boston side, I heard the developers got rights all the way around.
really,
Be a lot of homes.
yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of vehicles. Yes, thank you, Roger. So any comments from residents at all? Yes, sir.
Thanks for the updates, much appreciated. Two follow-up questions. First with respect to. Oh, thank you. First, with respect to the two signs that are gonna be available on the 18th, I think you said.
Well, they should be ready to be picked up. We're
Okay.
hoping the week of the 18th. I just talked with Nancy and Roger earlier this afternoon to try to firm that up. Those signs have been elusive. It's been, first one was broke, then the other one was good. One had a broken face, the other one was good. We were going to cannibalize one to make one for out of two, and then the final answer was, well, they're both fixed.
Yep.
I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed that it's going to happen, but they've been elusive for whatever reason, but we're going to get those back home.
Okay, so if that's a short-term deliverable in some way, shape, or form, I guess my question is there anything, I respect the fact you mentioned that there's other demand for solutions in the town. Is there anything else we would need to do from a Miller Road standpoint to, I guess, to designate one of those for us? Or is that already sort of
But
acknowledged?
one of those is definitely going to go on Miller Road,
Okay,
at least one. No, not permanently, no, I'm sorry. Is that what you meant, permanently?
so maybe I need to understand what it is. My understanding is the stop sign has, it's like, it turns into a different, I'm sorry, the speed limit sign turns into a different type of speed limit sign that also shares with the driver how fast they're going, as opposed to the big one that I know we put in our yard a couple
Right.
times. So I guess I assumed it would be there long-term, but you're saying it's not?
It could be there long-term, but not permanently, is Nancy. Nancy is Roger's secretary over in Highway, and Nancy's done a lot of work on this for me. Nancy, if there's anything that you want to add to this conversation, feel free.
Well,
Because we have a number of residents on a number of roads that are always, they're concerned. Everyone's concerned with speed limits. So we try to rotate those through.
Okay.
That's the plan, and hopeful that it will have an impact. That coupled with our law enforcement. And if, in fact, we do embark on a deeper dive, so to speak, engineering study where there's traffic calming, if we feel that, or if the engineering rather feels that there's a need for that and they strongly suggest it, and we can foot that bill, then that's something that would hopefully alleviate that in the long term or permanently. But with 4 signs and a lot of roads in Malta, we would almost have to rotate those through, just if for no other reason, to be fair to all of the rest of the residents in town. But
Okay.
we would certainly put it where we feel that it's really needed, and where it's requested is going to have a huge impact on that as well.
Okay.
Does Roger, you're the one that makes the judgment as to where they're deployed and for how long?
No, it's a request by the residents, and we set it up and, ask order, and it goes up for 2 weeks.
So it just wrote, based on requests that come in, if you make a request, the next time it's available, you get it in your neighborhood for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Regardless of what neighborhood you're in, it's just that,
You just go by whoever.
Requests.
A demand, pretty much the demand.
The reason why it's 2 weeks is that's what the person that sells the sign says. After that, they get used to it and it doesn't, it's not a big.
When I spoke with DOT, that's exactly what they said. They get so used to it, they don't pay attention to it anymore.
Just to back up, John, those signs that are out for repair right now, or on Route 9, they become defective. We brought them in. I asked, I believe Kevin King, and he told me just sit on them, and we've since then sent them out. Since last fall, we sent them out to get fixed. So it's not like we're due diligence on it, you know, I mean, I was told in signs and stripes and all that stuff that's general fund stuff. So he pretty much said, don't send them out, so I didn't send them out.
okay.
No, I think Nancy has done, I know, a lot of work on this. She's been making the phone calls and hounding, so to speak, the outfit that has these signs, and express the urgency that, hey, we'd like them back. Sometime this year would be really nice, but even sooner would be even better. So Nancy has that effect on people.
Hey, Nancy, I have a question. Were they returned back to the manufacturer or a subcontractor?
Person of that manufacturer took it. Our person, Chris, took them last November and, sent them to the direct manufacturer. I followed up, not every day, not every week, but I'd ask. And since COVID especially, you get the same kind of answers about anything. You order furniture, you order a car, you order gas, and they're saying this or that's out of all, you know, so it's the same kind of answers. And they said that, they couldn't find them at one point. So then I started saying, well, if you cannot find them, and then I called the next week on that one, all right, have to look at the days, maybe it was 10 days. And, I was gonna push them to say, if you can't find them, we want new ones, we want replacements.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, we found them, and they're both working. So supposedly next week, they're being delivered to us, and that's the scoop. These signs, Roger is very frustrated with because the batteries don't last that long, so our guys are going up very often to change them.
Right.
Not a
3
big
days.
deal, but it's annoying, okay? These newer ones we're looking at, we're thinking of solar. And again, it would not be within our budget because our focus for the highway department is maintaining roads, okay? Period. We offer other services because we have the time at times in between the major times a year, we're doing different things. But that being said, I lost my train of thought. But those are better signs, and these signs, I can remotely, because I used to have to sit on the side of the road with a laptop. Okay, we had to get a laptop, and sit on the side of the road to download this information from those two signs that were up there. To be honest with you, I didn't even notice them after a while, didn't even know they were there, but they were up there for quite some time. These newer ones, I supposedly can, if they want us to order them, can be done remotely. We'll see. He says they're better, they're more upgraded. Even the battery operated one is supposed to be better batteries, but still, it doesn't do the things that, now that data is good for us eternally only. It does not help other people except for FYI. We can give it to our, I was gonna say
Engineer.
engineer, and that can help. But that's one tiny little spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
that information we get from that sign to do anything about speed limit.
Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy, thank you very much.
When I called the manufacturer maybe 3 weeks ago, they could not even find the signs in their system, but they did have the sale date that they had been sold. And I had a great conversation. He explained that the batteries are issued, but they are supposedly longer, and it's a cloud-based system, so
I think you had another question too, right?
Yeah, just a quick one.
you don't have to sit there downloading everything.
We added extra batteries, so we could charge the ones, two of them, while the other two are out
Yeah.
there, the whole 9 yards. And the best thing to do is, the people that ordered them are the ones you should talk to. And we go through our salesperson, and they found out, he knows what signs we're talking about in that company, so.
Thank you for all you're doing. I know you come here and you only hear complaints, but I recognize you do a lot of other things that we're not recognizing. So
Hey, that's what
thanks for fighting. Appreciate it. My other question is, I know the year with the state is the typical turnaround. Do we have the date of when we submitted for that, just so we can, I guess,
Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was March sometime.
March of '23, probably?
Yes.
23.
I'm gonna say 3 March.
Okay,
Yeah,
And I'm going, I'm, don't, you know.
it was March.
okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.
While we're on the signs, is it a seasonal thing too? That's like
Yes, we don't put them out in winter time. We just won't plow, and then people won't speed.
You can't say that, Nancy.
I'm not the superintendent.
You can think that, but you can't say that.
She didn't realize her mouth was open when it came through her brain. I know that.
So there's always a risk when I ask, in this case, I asked Nancy to be here tonight for this reason. Because Nancy's been involved in this, and that's the person you want here.
Roger to handle
It
this
is.
kind of stuff, because he has other things to worry about, but this is a huge distraction from the things he's doing on the road.
It is. So I appreciate that Nancy showed up, but this is the risk that you run when you ask Nancy to show up at a meeting, so. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it.
Is that why I don't get asked to come? I just come? No. All right, so Malta Seniors met today, talking about safety. We had Trooper Stephen Rothwine from Troop G, who is the outreach coordinator for the community, and he taught the seniors, or talked to us about how to stay safe on the roads, in the parking areas, and in our homes, and he did a really great job. He did it with great humor. We enjoyed donations from Leah's Cakery, and also had delicious pies baked by the Malta Ridge Fire Department Auxiliary. Thank you, Nancy. Murray put the newsletter out at 5 a.m., so if you haven't accessed it, it is now out online. He put out at 5 a.m. and 16 folks opened it. And they all confessed this morning that they were waiting. We have excellent services to the seniors because of our town board and our Malta Community Center, and I want to thank you again, let you know how much we appreciate it. We have very active seniors, and we have dance, exercise, games, bingo, all this week. and it's really making an impact on our seniors. Thank you.
You know, thank you, Kathy. And you know, you just jogged my memory. I had another thing I wanted to announce earlier, and that was the seniors barbecue that the county had put on at the fairgrounds. And I was up there, and what really blew me away, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I know I was exhausted when I got home. When I got there at 11 o'clock that day, seniors were already dancing because of the DJ that was there. It was great. And I mean, we know how hot it was that day and how humid it was that day. And I felt awful because I was so whooped when I got home. But when I left there at almost 2 o'clock, they were still dancing.
Right.
I wonder, what is it you're giving the seniors?
Well,
I know we just gave them hamburgers, but were they sugared up? What was going on up there?
The problem with seniors is our mind says no, but our feet say yes. So we do it. you
Well, there
know,
was a
so
lot
I
of it
was out
going
there.
on. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of dancing going on.
Right.
And I
That's,
was embarrassed.
that's the power of community, especially with seniors, you know, thinking about 9/11, it has really unified us as people, and there's more that unites us than divides us. And I think when you're a senior, you lose your filter and you just accept people, so.
Yeah, there were
Thank
no
you.
filters up there that day. It was a
No.
great time for that reason. Thank you, Kathy. Any other comments from anyone? Okay, then we can move right on to town board business. On October 2nd, we need to set a public hearing for Route 9 South Neighborhood 3 rezoning.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Yeah, we have one no. Thank you. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is to accept the Comptroller's Court audit report. Justice Fossey and Justice Sloat.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item is to appoint on the Board of Assessment Review, Carlton Bourne, make that appointment. That is to fill a vacancy we had.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
That is carried. Thank you. Next item is to approve the Assessors Conference, October 3rd through the 6th, Ray Linda Salt.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Also carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a deed restriction for Luther Forest Athletic Field parcel. Steve, I don't know if you wanted to say anything at all about that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the board received the revised agreement, which just clarified some information with respect to the easement. There's an existing environmental easement and deed restriction at the property. The EPA and New York State DEC have continuing monitoring and implementation requirements at that site. There was a new change that required certain installations of vapor barriers at any new construction built on the site. And initially, there was some language about if any excavation was done, that other requirements were required. But after reviewing the legislation or the enforcement rules and going through that with EPA and DEC, it turns out that the town is not required to comply with that, so that was removed from the agreement. And I sent over what I believe will be the final version of the agreement to the board. It's a statutory form from New York State DEC with the language saying that if any new construction is to occur within the barrier, the buffer around that property, and there's a very small sliver in Malta, that it would have to comply with that. Like, the likelihood of us building in that area is about zero because it's adjacent to the road and, we're not using it for, that purpose. So in any event, it is a requirement, and if the board has any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And just to be clear, Steve, just to reiterate, this is not to suggest that there is a new hazard, so to speak, that's in that area. This is not to infer that there's a danger that we now have to be aware of. This is just to be extra double safe, I guess you could say, and be proactive and make sure that, that nothing does happen and that we haven't missed something. So that's how I understand it.
Yeah, it's a response to continuing monitoring of the site, and in 2018, pre-COVID, there was some studies done that required new controls to be placed at the property and within this buffer zone. But there's nothing new that's triggering this. It's cleanup from this EPA explanation of differences that was issued in 2018 that required potentially future excavation and barrier controls. So it's taken a while for the parties, DEC, EPA, now the town of Malta. This also impacts other properties, Global Foundries being the primary one. But I think the NYSERDA still owns land out there, and they're subject to the same type of grant. There is this existing one, so it's just the continuing monitoring and requiring to comply with that. When the town took the property, it took subject to that easement and the rights of New York State DEC and EPA to access and monitor and require potential changes, and that's what's happening now.
Great, thank you very much.
So at this time, you're satisfied?
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the agreement that we've provided to the town board to review.
Steve, just one minor point. It looks like the resolution notes 10 Rocket Drive. I believe the road is Rocket Way.
So that's a fair point. I did look at that. Interestingly, that the tax bills and highway map do not agree on the name of it. So if we want, we can request an AKA Rocket Way.
If this jives with legalese, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be a problem.
Yeah. So
Plus, I have to find one of these every week.
You're good at that, too.
no, yeah. So
It's the only one I found. So.
yeah. My point is, I think the description of the property is sufficient, and if it is actually Rocket Way, it wouldn't impact the legality of the
Okay,
agreement.
good. Well, I'll move the resolution. Request a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is to accept a highway heavy equipment operator appointment. Michelle Couch.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. And also heavy equipment operator appointment Maxwell Scheimer.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also carried. Thank you. Accept the stipulation of settlements for Lakeview Outlets. That's Home 2 Suites.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also carried. And we have one more, a stipulation of settlement for Malta Hotel Group LLC, which is Fairfield.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried. That said, do we have any other comments from any residents? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
I'm
moved.
sorry. Some,
Did you have something, Roger? Or you
Roger
just?
had his
I
hand.
just want to, I know it's residents' comments, but
you can
You're a
comment.
resident.
We'll let you. You're a resident.
You're a resident.
everybody gives me these kudos, and it's people like Nancy and my two working supervisors that become the team that we put it all together, you know? And I appreciate all the kudos that people give me, but it's also people behind the scenes, and that's why Nancy's here tonight.
We know who really does the work.
We,
Your mom
Yeah.
tells us.
We've
I'm
actually,
aware of that, Roger.
we've actually talked with all of those people, and they get it. They know that we have to say that it's you, and they understand it. So,
She'll let us know that.
thanks, Raj.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?